In 1965, a farmer in Fremont, Nebraska needed a full set of tools and had exactly one way to get them. He sat at his kitchen table with the Montgomery Ward catalog, the big one, the wish book, and he filled out an order form with a pencil, a drill, a set of wrenches, a circular saw, a bench grinder, all of it Powr-Kraft, the Ward's house brand. He mailed the form to Chicago and went back to work. A few weeks later, a stack of boxes arrived at the depot, and he built his entire working life out of what was in them. Those tools outlived him. But here is the part that makes this list different from every other one. When his grandson went looking to replace a broken one, he found that he could not. The company, the brand, the catalog, and the counter were all gone. Every trace of them, forever. That grinder, the one that ran for 40 years, is number 2 on this list. And the single thing Montgomery Ward gave that farmer in 1872 that no company gives anymore, the thing that vanished most completely of all, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1965, for millions of American families, especially the rural ones, Montgomery Ward was not a store you drove to. It was a book that came in the mail, and it sold you everything. The house, in the early days, the furniture, the washing machine, the clothes, and the tools. A man in a farmhouse 50 miles from the nearest town could build a whole workshop from a catalog and a stamp. We traded that away, and then we lost the company that made it possible entirely. This is not a story about a brand that changed hands. Powr-Kraft did not get bought and put on a different shelf. It vanished. The tools worked, and they still work. And that is exactly the strange grief of this list. The tools outlived the entire company that made them. Number 14 is a wrench set so well made that men still hunt for it at estate sales from a brand you cannot buy at any price because it no longer exists. Number 2 is the one from the top of this story, the Powr-Kraft grinder that ran 40 years. And number 1 is not a tool at all. It is the thing Montgomery Ward invented, the promise it built its whole empire on, and the thing whose disappearance we are still paying for today. These 20 tools were never just steel. They were the mark of a company that reached a man where no store could, and a family that trusted a book to outfit a life, not a store, a catalog. Every tool on this list, that Nebraska farmer had in his own 2 hands, out of boxes that came in the mail. If that vanished world is worth remembering, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last one is the one that matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost Montgomery Ward tools every American dad owned before they vanished forever. Number 20, the Powr-Kraft hand drill. Before the cordless drill, this was the drill in the Ward's catalog, a corded 1/4 inch with a steel body and a pistol grip a man could hold all day. You lined up the bit, leaned into it, and bored a clean hole through wood or steel with a motor built heavier than it needed to be. For the farmer wiring a barn or hanging a gate, this one drill did every boring job on the place for decades. Powr-Kraft was Ward's own power tool brand, sold only through their catalog and their stores, made to a price a working family could reach. The Nebraska farmer's drill ran for 30 years on the original brushes, warm in his hands every winter he wired a new outbuilding. Not a tool you replaced, a tool you ordered once. Number 19, the Riverside wrench. Riverside was the Ward's hand tool and hardware name, and their wrenches were the plain, honest kind, drop-forged and chrome-plated, that a man trusted without thinking. You reached into the roll, found the size by feel, and it fit the nut clean with no slop. For the man who did all his own work, A riverside wrench was as good as anything with a famous name and cost him less through the book. Riverside tools were made for Ward by American forges, stamped with the name of a brand that millions trusted and almost no one under 50 has now ever heard of. The farmer's set hung in order on a board he built himself. Not a wrench you replaced, a wrench you inherited. Number 18, the Powr-Kraft circular saw. Heavy, all metal, with a cord and a steel shoe, and it built half the outbuildings in rural America. You set the depth, followed your pencil line, and drove it through a sheet of plywood in one pass. For the father framing his own machine shed on weekends, this saw did in a morning what a handsaw did in a day. Ward's put a power saw in reach of a farm family's budget through the catalog, and that one machine is why so many barns and porches were built by the men who owned them. The Nebraska farmer built his own grain shed with his, one board at a time over 2 summers. Not a tool for a crew, a tool for your own place.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 17, the Powr-Kraft bench grinder. A gray motor with a stone on each end, bolted to the corner of the workbench, humming up to speed every evening. You leaned a dull plow point or a mower blade into it, the sparks poured off, and a dead edge came back in a minute. For the farmer who sharpened his own everything, this grinder was the machine that kept every other tool on the place alive. Wards sold these heavy and cheap out of the catalog, and men bolted them down and never moved them again. The Nebraska farmers threw a fan of orange sparks across the shop every evening at chore time. Not a tool that made things, a tool that kept your tools sharp. Number 16, the Powr-Kraft table saw. The heart of a farm workshop, a cast iron top and a blade standing through it, ordered in pieces and bolted together in the shop. You set the fence, fed the board through, and ripped it straight and true. For the man who bought his lumber rough to save money, this saw turned cheap boards into gates, cabinets, and furniture. Wards sold it through the same catalog that sold the seed and the boots, so a farmer could equip a whole shop without ever leaving his land. The Nebraska farmer's table saw is still cutting in his grandson's garage. The cast iron top waxed twice a year, so the wood glides and the iron never rusts. Not a saw for a shop in town, a saw for the farm. Number 15, the Riverside socket set. Laid out in a metal case with every socket in its slot, and it opened up every machine on the farm. You broke the bolt loose with the breaker bar, spun it out with the ratchet, and the tractor or the truck came apart in your hands. For the man who could not afford to have a mechanic out to the farm, this one case of sockets was the difference between a running tractor and a stalled harvest. Riverside sockets were forged and chromed to match anything on the market, ordered from the book for less than the name brands cost in town. The farmer's case came apart in his hands under a stalled tractor 100 times and never let him down. Not a set you outgrew, a set you built on. Number 14, the Riverside combination wrench set. The set men still hunt for at estate sales today, open on one end, boxed on the other, hung in order on a rail. You reached without looking, found the size by feel, and it fit without slop because the forging was clean. For the father under a tractor with his boy holding the light, The right wrench in the right size was the whole difference between a good afternoon and a ruined one. These wrenches were made so well that collectors seek them out now, and here is the ache of it. You cannot buy a new one at any price because Riverside and the company behind it are simply gone. The farmer's set was the first tools he ever ordered, and he never needed to order another. Not a wrench you replaced, a wrench that outlived its own maker. Stop the count for a moment, because to understand why these tools vanished so completely, you have to understand what Montgomery Ward was, and it was something the world had never seen before. In 1872, in Chicago, a traveling salesman named Aaron Montgomery Ward printed the first general merchandise mail-order catalog in the world. It was a single sheet of paper, 163 items, and one promise printed on it that changed everything: satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. No one had ever offered a farmer that before. Ward did it more than a decade before Sears sold a single thing by mail. He reached the family on the far farm, the one the stores ignored, and he backed every order with that guarantee, and the country trusted him. By the 1960s, Ward's own house brands, Powr-Kraft and Riverside among them, made up as much as 95% of what was in that catalog. This was not a store reselling other people's tools. This was a company that made its own, sold them under its own names, and stood behind them with the oldest promise in American retail. That is why these tools were good, and that is why, when the company finally died, they vanished so totally, because there was no other store that carried the brand, and no one else who had ever made it. Number 13. The Powr-Kraft radial arm saw. A blade on an arm that pulled across the table, one machine that cross-cut, ripped, and mitered everything a man built. You pulled it through the wood toward you with both hands, and it did the work of 3 saws in one footprint. For the farmer who trimmed out his own house, this was the reason he never called a carpenter. Ward's sold it through the catalog to men who had no shop in town to visit, a whole Finnish carpentry shop delivered to the depot in boxes. The Nebraska farmer built every cabinet in his kitchen with his, on winter nights when the fields were frozen and the shop stove was lit. Not a saw you drove to buy, a saw that came in the mail. Number 12. The Powr-Kraft air compressor, a tank and a motor that gave a farm shop air for tools, tires, and paint, ordered from the same book as everything else. You let it build pressure, and then you ran an impact wrench, filled a tractor tire, or blew a part clean. For the man 50 miles from the nearest garage, his own compressed air meant he never had to haul a machine to town to have it worked on. Ward's put shop air within reach of a farm family, and it changed what a man could do at home, from setting tires to spraying a fresh coat on an implement. Not a job you took to town, a shop you built at home. Number 11. The Powr-Kraft welder, a stick welder from the catalog that let a farmer mend his own broken iron, and on a farm, iron breaks constantly. You struck an arc, laid a bead, and a snapped implement or a cracked frame was whole again by afternoon. For the man whose plow broke in the field on a Saturday, welding it himself was the line between a lost day and a lost week. Ward's sold welders to farmers who could not wait on a shop, and it made a man the master of his own repairs in his own yard. The Nebraska farmer mended 40 years of broken equipment with his, striking the arc under a bare bulb long after dark when a harrow came in cracked. Not a repair you hired, a repair you made yourself. Number 10. The Powr-Kraft drill press, a cast iron column and a table you cranked up and down, boring a hole dead square every time. You clamped the work, set the depth, pulled the handle, and it drilled truer than any hand could. For the farmer building or repairing anything that had to fit, the drill press was the first real machine that made his work look professional. Ward's sold it out of the catalog, heavy and true, built to farm shop standards rather than a homeowner's, and those machines are still running in farm shops today. Not a machine that wore out, a machine that outlived its owner. Here is the part of the story we have skipped, and it is the part that shows what this catalog really meant. In the winter of 1936, deep in the Depression, that same farm had a different man on it, the Nebraska farmer's own father. A blizzard had shut the roads for 2 weeks. The nearest town was a frozen 20 miles off, and the hand pump that brought water to the house and the stock cracked and failed. Without water, the animals would die, and the family with them. There was no store to drive to. There was only the catalog on the shelf, and a promise printed in it. The father found the part in the Ward's book. By some grace, the rural mail got through where the roads had not. The part came, and it fit, and it saved the winter. That is what Montgomery Ward was to a farm family, not a convenience. A lifeline that reached where nothing else could, backed by a guarantee that it would be right. The son never forgot watching his father trust that book with the family's survival, and that thing, the promise underneath the whole catalog, is number 1. Number 9. The Powr-Kraft router. A motor and a bit that cut a clean edge, a groove, or a joint, and turned plain boards into finished millwork. You set the depth, guided it along a fence, and it shaped an edge no hand tool could match for speed. For the farmer building his own cabinets and trim, the router put fine woodworking within his reach. Ward sold it through the book to men who would never see the inside of a cabinet shop, and let them build like they had, cutting a clean bead on a plain pine board by lamplight. Not a tool for a tradesman, a tool for a farmer who did his own. Number 8. The Riverside pipe wrench and plumbing tools. Heavy iron pipe wrenches and the fittings to go with them, because a farm did its own plumbing or did without. You set the jaws on the pipe, leaned on the handle, and it bit and turned where nothing else would. For the man with a well, a stock tank, and a house all plumbed in steel, these tools kept the water running with no plumber for 50 miles. Riverside sold the whole plumbing kit through the catalog, forged to last a lifetime of hard use, the jaws still biting clean after 30 winters. The Nebraska farmer plumbed his own house and barn with them. Not a job you called out for, a job you owned. Number 7. The Powr-Kraft sander and finishing tools. A belt or orbital sander that took the rough farm lumber and made it smooth enough for furniture and cabinets. You ran it with the grain, and a splintery board became a surface worth finishing. For the farmer's wife, who wanted a real piece of furniture, this tool in her husband's hands turned scrap lumber into something for the parlor. Ward's sold it cheap through the book, and it let a farm family build nice things from rough wood, sanded smooth on a winter evening by the shop stove. Not furniture you bought in town, furniture you made at home. Number 6. The Powr-Kraft lawn and garden tractor. A small tractor from the catalog that mowed, tilled, and hauled around a rural place, ordered with every attachment a family needed. You changed the oil, greased the fittings, sharpened the blade, and it worked for 20 years. For the family with acres to keep, this machine did the work of a hired hand. Ward sold it and every part for it through the same catalog, so a man could order a single spindle bolt for a 15-year-old machine and have it in the mail by week's end. Not a machine you replaced, a machine you maintained from the catalog. Number 5. The Powr-Kraft socket and ratchet, the everyday driver. The ratchet a farmer reached for more than any other tool, a round head and a fine tooth count that turned a bolt in a tight space. You seated the socket, clicked it around, and that sound was the sound of a man fixing his own machines. For the farmer who did every repair himself, this one tool did more than any other he owned. Ward's built it to last and sold it for less than the name brands, and it earned its place in a man's hand through 10,000 Saturday repairs. The Nebraska farmer wore the chrome off his in 40 years of use, until it fit his hands like it had grown there. Not a tool you babied, a tool you used every day. Number 4. The Riverside hammer and striking tools. A plain claw hammer and the mallets and sledges that went with it, hung on a straight hickory handle, forged to take a lifetime of blows. You choked up for finish work, dropped to the end for framing, and it drove and pulled without complaint. For the man who built and mended everything on his own place, a good hammer was the tool his hands knew best. Riverside sold striking tools through the catalog forged as well as any, and a man could outfit his whole bench from one book, the handles worn smooth to his grip over the years. Not a tool you thought about, a tool you never worked without. Number 3. The Powr-Kraft Complete Workshop. This is the real point, the thing no store could do, that a man could order an entire workshop, every machine and tool in it, from a single catalog. The table saw, the drill press, the grinder, the welder, the wrenches, the sockets, all of it, out of one book, delivered to a depot 50 miles from anywhere. For the farm family with no shop in town to visit, this was everything, a complete working life delivered by mail. Ward's did not just sell a tool, it sold a man the means to be self-sufficient on his own land, no matter how far out he lived. The Nebraska farmer's whole shop came from that catalog, one order at a time, over years. Not a tool from a store, a life's work from a book. Number 2. The Powr-Kraft grinder that ran 40 years, and everything like it. This is the tool from the top of our story, and it stands for all of them. The Nebraska farmer's Powr-Kraft grinder ran for 40 years, sharpening every blade and edge on the place, and it never failed him. When it finally wore a bearing, his grandson went to find a part. There was nothing. No store, no catalog, no brand, no warranty desk. The company that made it had been dead for years, and Powr-Kraft had vanished with it, so completely that the grandson had never even heard the name. That is the strange grief at the center of this whole list. These tools were built so well that they outlived the entire company that made them, and now they run on in garages across America as the last working pieces of a business the world forgot. For the family holding a tool that still works from a company that no longer exists, it is a machine and a ghost at the same time. Not a tool you can replace, a tool that outlived its own maker. Number 1. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. It was never a tool at all. It was 5 words Aaron Montgomery Ward printed on a single sheet of paper in 1872, and they built the largest catalog empire on earth. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. No one had ever told a farmer that before. If the tool was wrong, if the part did not fit, if the thing broke, you sent it back and you got your money. No argument from a company 1,000 miles away that you had to trust sight unseen. That promise is why a man in a farmhouse would mail his hard-earned money to Chicago and wait 3 weeks for a box. It is why Ward's reached families no store would ever bother with. And it is the thing that vanished most completely of all. When the company died in 2001, after 129 years, that promise died with it. There was no counter left to honor it, and no brand left to carry it. Here is the part worth sitting with. The tools are still out there, in barns and estate sales and the backs of grandsons' garages, Powr-Kraft and Riverside, still working, worth more than they cost. But the thing that made them worth buying, the guarantee behind them, the company that stood there and said, "We will make this right," is gone, and you cannot order it from any catalog now. What that farmer really bought in 1965 was not just a grinder. It was the word of a company that had kept that word for 90 years. We did not just lose the tools, we lost the promise behind them. Not the most powerful tool on this list, the plainest, and the only one that can never be ordered again. None of it needed a store on a corner. That was the genius of it, and it is the thing we have half forgotten. A man on a far farm with a catalog and a stamp and a company that guaranteed its word owed nothing to the town that overcharged him. He ordered his tools from a book and built his whole life with them. He trusted a promise printed on a page, and the promise held for 90 years. The tools were real, and the best of them still run, but the thing that mattered most was never the steel. It was the guarantee behind it, the oldest one in American retail, and it is the thing that vanished most completely when the company finally fell. That was not taken from us by a better store. It was simply let go, when a company that had reached the whole country by mail could not find its footing in a world of malls and warehouses. We did not lose the tools. They are in a barn right now. Powr-Kraft stamped on the side, still running. What we lost was a book that came to the farthest door in America, and 5 words printed inside it: satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back.